Welcome back to Ultimate Punching, the Ultimate MMA channel. Today, I've got an esteemed guest with me here today, SmileNSam Alvey, UFC veteran and karate combat champion, and probably one of the most positive guys you can find on the internet today. So I'm going to be chatting with him a little bit about his life as a fighter, UFC 300, and a little bit more. So first of all, SmileNSam, thank you for coming on. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful, sir. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great. We had a fantastic weekend of fights, UFC 300. It was absolutely amazing. And then, Monday morning, I actually get to interview a UFC fighter himself. So I'm pretty excited. This is great. So I guess we'll start off with what's top of everybody's mind. What did you think of UFC 300 and the production and everything that went on there? Did it live up to the hype in your mind?
No. The problem was $299 was I thought it was a better card. I like 300. There was I'm not complaining about anything, but there was stuff just kind of forced into there that I didn't feel needed to be. It was a great card. There were a lot of good fights. There are a couple clunkers, but there's only a couple. And I thought it was a lot of fun to watch. And the Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje fight was the fight of the night. Maybe fight of the year.
Yeah, it certainly was an amazing card. There was a couple boring fights, but I feel like they were more boring because of all the great fights that we saw that night. You know what I mean? Like, on a normal evening, all of them would have been considered pretty good, I think. But because everything was so like high level, the ones that weren't as high level were just a little bit more on the boring side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see it. Every card will have a boring fight or two. But 300, it was a great card. I liked what they did with it, and people are going to be talking about it for a long time.
Yeah, I think so too. So one of the things that I just wanted to sort of talk to you a little bit about was you and your life as a fighter and kind of how you got into this. So who was SmileNSam kind of in high school? Did you always want to be a fighter, or was this something you kind of stumbled upon, and just sort of went with it?
Yeah, I had no intention of being a fighter. I stumbled into this career. I didn't know anything about the UFC until I was probably 8-1 as a professional. I was just doing it for shits and giggles. I was just having a good time. In high school, all growing up, I was a band nerd. I played trumpet forever. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing everything. I grew up on a lake. I hunted and fished and did all that. And eventually somebody said, hey, you want to fight? I said, sure, let's give it a shot. Never trained, didn't know the rules, didn't do anything, but I jumped in there and started making a name for myself.
That's fantastic. And so when was it that you sort of decided, okay, I'm going to actually like compete, I'm going to do this professionally? Was it, coach who sort of motivated you to do it, or was this just something that you tried maybe at an amateur level and just kind of went with it from there?
Yeah, I went pro because somebody said, hey, I'll pay you if you fight for me. I said, okay, sounds great. I didn't train until I was 2-0 as a pro. I never stepped foot in a gym, never did anything. I just enjoyed doing it. I had a lot of fun with it. And so there's nothing that inspired me. It was just something, okay, you'll pay for gas and I'll get $100. I'm in. And that's how it was for a long time with my career.
And so when did you sort of make the jump from like you're just doing this for a couple $100 here and there to like, okay, I'm going to try to, go with this as far as I can?
Really, once they started paying me, which was a long time. I did a tournament when I was young, or when I think it was my 10th or 11th professional fight. And had I won, I'd get $10,000. Had I lost, I'd get $0. And I lost. I fought as a professional for no money. And it was part of the thing. So, on to the next one. And I just kept going to the next one. Eventually, I started making a little bit of money. And it was never really a decision was, well, I'm doing this. It was I could pay rent and I could do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. So I kept doing it. I got to travel all over the world for no money, but I got to travel for free. And so I just had a blast with it.
Out of all the places you've traveled and fought, like, is there a place that's sort of a highlight for you? Where was your favorite place to train to fight?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my favorite place to fight was Mexico City. I got to fight there twice. I beat Rashad Evans there and Alex Nicholson there, and I just loved it. It's so much fun. The hotel was wonderful. The whole experience was just as good as it got. The crowd was incredible. I love fighting in Mexico, and Mexico City is probably real close to. It is the top of my list.
That's amazing. I've never been to Mexico City myself, but I have traveled in Mexico a little bit. It's a lot of fun. How is the altitude there? Because I know I actually think it was the last Karate Combat that I watched. I've been a Karate Combat fan since day one. We've got the Karate Combat champion there. Back when Brian Callen was doing some of the commentary, back when they've had it on Sunday evenings, things like that. So I've been watching Karate Combat for a while now. But they were mentioning about the altitude during the commentary. So how did you find the altitude when you were fighting in Mexico City? Was it a challenge?
I was just trained for it. My first fight against Alex Nicholson is very short notice. So I went in there just knowing I was going to get tired. You're going to get tired, just prepare for it. I conditioned for as best I could, better than I ever could. And I got in there and I was not tired. After that fight, I actually bought an altitude tent. So for 4 or 5 years, I slept every night at 9,000 feet and I trained at sea level. And I just had a blast, having that advantage over people. So the next time I fought in Mexico or Colorado, the one time against Marquardt, I felt like I was at home. It felt like nothing.
That's interesting. I didn't even know you could do that. So like, how do you, when it comes to like an altitude tent, is that something you would recommend other fighters get so that they don't have those cardio issues in different places?
Yeah, the best way you can train is if you sleep at altitude and train at sea level. It gives you most of the benefits of being in altitude, but then all of the benefits of not training at altitude. So I recommend it. I've still got mine. I don't use it anymore, but it's I could if I wanted to. I've got it out in my trailer.
I wanted to just ask you a little bit about your time in the UFC. So, you're a veteran there. You had some fights there. One of the things you've said on like different TikToks and social media posts is that, there's a lot of complaints out there from, I would say, the outside audience about UFC Fighter Pay, how UFC doesn't treat fighters well, but all you've had to say are just really positive things and how they were very fair with you and nice with you and things like that. So just wanted to get your sort of take on that.
Yeah, the UFC pays us way more than we deserve. I mean, you have some of the superstars like Jake Gaethjes and the Holloways and the John Joneses. Those guys get paid what they get paid, but most of the card gets paid way more than we're worth. I like to bring up the example. My first win in the UFC was over in Australia. So they flew me and my corner out there. And then they flew my opponent and his corner out there. And we got off the plane. They gave us $1,000. They got off the plane, gave the other guy $1,000. And we did the math. And by the end of our fight, the UFC probably spent $50,000 to $70,000 on our fight and didn't make a penny off us. I mean, nobody tuned in to watch SmileNSam Alvey. Nobody tuned in to watch Dylan Andrews. They still paid me $70,000, or they paid us to have us fight $70,000. It's a crazy amount, and we did nothing to deserve that. Now they pay that with the hopes we become the Max Holloways or the Conor McGregors or the SmileNSam like I eventually did. But they're putting a big bet on that in the beginning. And as you rise in the rankings, they pay you more and more and more. Now, people also underestimate or overestimate how many people watch the UFC. We are still, as much as I have made it my career, my passion, my love, and I'm surrounded by UFC, it is still such a small sport in the grand scheme of things. Like the biggest event you could ever imagine, which was like Conor versus Khabib. They fit it in the MGM. There's like 15 to 17,000 people there. I mean, in a mid-season worthless game, the NBA has close to 50,000 people there. It's ridiculous to compare the sports. We don't compare. We will someday, and we're growing. They're doing everything they can to make it happen, but they're paying us more than fair, and they're taking a big risk with every fighter they have.
Yeah, I really like that. I really like that perspective. And one of the things that I notice, I come from sort of a bit of a marketing background, is that almost every single UFC fighter, the UFC does a pretty good job at telling their story. Where when it's like they're just walking out, Megan O'Leary gives a little bit of a bit on what they're going through, sort of the emotions they're feeling, their families, different things like that. And I think that one thing that I noticed is that basically every fighter that isn't in the UFC was at some point connected to the UFC. So if there's somebody over at PFL, the reason they're at the PFL is because they were once in the UFC, and the reason you care is because they told that person's story. And so I think the UFC does that better than anybody. Karate Combat seems to be getting that part of it right as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Karate Combat, I like the pick there.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah. So, and I wanted to ask you about Karate Combat. So how did you sort of transition over to that and kind of become the Karate Combat champion?
It was the only league, Karate Combat, that was manly enough to have someone fight me. I tried to fight everywhere else. I was out there. I said yes to a dozen different fights and organizations, BKFC, some Russian boxing stuff, some MMA things locally. Nobody would fight me. I even said I would take short notice fights. I would go up to heavyweight. I would fight anywhere, anyone, anytime. And people kept turning me down. So I reached out to Karate Combat, or they kind of reached out to me, and we started talking. I said, I'll fight anyone, anytime. I'll keep you busy, and I will be your champion. And they said, all right, well, we'll see. And then they gave me the chance, and they have not, they have been true to their word. They have kept me busy. They have kept me fighting, and their athletes have all said yes. Not a one of them has said no. So I am just blessed to be part of that organization. And I'm helping bring them to the next, the next level of their league.
Yeah, I hope to see it, because I truly believe right now that Karate Combat is the second best combat sports production out there. Like I've watched, PFL, Bellator, I've watched some BKFC. UFC is the king, but I think Karate Combat, in terms of just the production quality, the pit's so unique. Most of the fights I've seen are super action packed. There is some takedown and takedowns and things like that, but for the most part, like I have not been bored watching any Karate Combat fights ever.
Yeah, it's a faster combat sport than anything else, because you don't have to worry about the boring parts. Wrestling, I love wrestling, I love jiu-jitsu, but when it hits the ground, everybody in the audience goes, even if they're smart about it, they try not to, but it's the boring part of every fight is when it goes to the ground. So Karate Combat took it out and said, all right, we'll give you a takedown. You have 5 seconds to do something with it. If you don't do anything, it's back up. And then that just opens up for the striking. You get to do more spins, more back fists, more heel kicks. You get to have so much more fun, so much more rapid fire attacks. And I just love watching every Karate Combat event.
Well, so the one thing that there's sort of two things. With Karate Combat, I love that it's super action packed. I also love their sudden death round, where if it's like tied, the judges don't know who's going to win. You fight one extra round, and the winner takes all. I really like that idea, and I just think the pit is so unique. How do you find fighting in the pit compared to the cage? Does it feel the same? Is it different? Do you have to sort of adjust how you go about fighting with it, sort of a different on different like terrain, I guess?
Yeah, there's no comparison between the two of them. The cage is so much easier to fight off than the pit. The pit is, if you are lying at that 45-degree angle, I can't fight back. It is now a matter of me trying to not get hit. I have to change my position immediately. In the UFC, I always like fighting with my back foot against the cage. In Karate Combat, I can't do that. I can't play that back up game like that. So I'm trying to force myself to come forwards a lot more than I ever had before. And I've been having some success with it. I've really enjoyed the pit, and it just looks cooler than the cage. I like fighting in the cage. I like watching fights in a ring, but I love both worlds. With the pit.
The one thing I've sent them an email, but I don't know if I'm going to get my way. I just feel like the pit's a bit too steep. If they like flattened it out a bit so that people might be able to actually do something off the pit instead, I thought that might be cool, but I don't know. I'm just a fan, not a fighter, right?
Yeah, as more people get pits in their backyard, like I'm going to build, they'll be able to do cooler stuff on it.
One of the videos that I saw that you posted online was, I think it was your daughter was entering her first jiu-jitsu tournament, and everybody online was, oh, she did so well. And then you made a response. You're like, no, she's the one who's crying, guys. But do you, so the reason I asked that, father of myself, do you encourage your kids to compete? Is that something they have to do? Is it something they wanted to do? Do you want your kids to sort of be in the martial arts space, fighting space, or is that or you just want them to train to sort of learn it?
It was a wrestling tournament, and they're just going to do it. There is nothing better for a child than a person than wrestling. It is better than anything else. And so I'm forcing my kids to wrestle. They all love it. She loves training. She hates being the center of attention. So when it was out there time to do a match, she shut down with that. But maybe not next year. And if she does it again next year, maybe not the year after that. She's going to be in wrestling her whole life. I mean, my kids they've all been to the gym before they've been home. They were born, they went to the gym, we came home. And that's been the case with all of them. So forcing is the wrong word because they all enjoy doing it, but I'm going to make sure that they do it their whole lives. And hopefully they never fight like I do.
I hear a little bit of a mix from fighters. Like some of them want their kids to sort of, go along with it. A lot of them are saying that they don't want them to do it. But I do, I started jujitsu only when I was like 26 or something. I'm 32 now. I never really did any martial arts kind of beforehand, but I just definitely think it's, realizing kind of how vulnerable you are and how little you actually know is a huge wake up call in life. So I absolutely want my kids to at least train a little bit to kind of learn stuff.
Yeah, Joe Rogan said it best. Somebody asked him, well, why do you train jiu-jitsu? What is the point of it? And Joe Rogan said, because if we were to get in a fight, I could kill you. And that's just it. To have the ability to defend yourself is completely necessary in every world. And there's very few things that do better than jiu-jitsu at doing that.
Yeah, it really is something. Like I remember the first day I went to jiu-jitsu, I got tied up like a pretzel by someone who was about half my size. And I was like, okay, there's something to this. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So one of the things another thing I just wanted to ask you about, like, what does a day look like for you when it comes to, training, fighting, what do you do for things outside of the fighting space for fun, family, that type of thing?
Yeah, I don't do anything for fun anymore, but I'm up at 6. I take the kids. I'm up at 6. I take the kids to school. I go to my first gym where I lift weights and do my cardio and conditioning. From there, I go to my jiu-jitsu class. I come home and I take care of my horses, goats, sheep, chickens, whole nine. I take care of my ranch. Then I start working on getting everything set up for my food truck, which is the business my wife and I run. We get all that set up. I go pick up my kids. I'll usually come home, take the food truck out. Or if I don't have a food truck that day, I go back and get another workout in. Then I come back. And I just go constantly. I love my life, but I am the busiest man alive. And the only one that might have me beat is my wife, who is also going to school full time at the moment. She does all of that and then some.
Yeah, that really is life. You mentioned you're on a ranch. Have you always sort of lived that kind of lifestyle on a ranch, or was that just sort of a dream that kind of happened through your career as a fighter? Yeah,
I've never done it before, and it was not a dream of mine. My wife kind of wanted to do it, and so when we left California, we moved out to Tennessee. Said, all right, let's do everything, and we just kind of got every animal all at once. We're still learning how to take care of all of them. We're not quite there, but for the most part, not much dies. Although I want to kill all of them. Jokingly, don't at me, PETA. But I enjoy what I'm doing. I enjoy what I do with my ranch here, and it's now life. It's not what I do every day.
That's pretty incredible. And so whereabouts are you now? Like, you were in California, you have a ranch. What state is that in? You're in Central Time. I'm also in Central Time up in Canada, but yeah.
I'm in Tennessee. I'm close to Nashville.
I know about Nashville. So another post you made on TikTok I wanted to just ask you about is you said you kind of train regularly with Sean Strickland. What's that like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Strickland's a blast. He and I have been buddies for a long time. He's broken me. I've broken him. And I like to think I left the UFC to clear the path for him to get that title. because that's just the kind of friend I am. And I wouldn't have had the career I've had without him being there. And I also like to think I helped him get to where he's at. We both cornered each other in the UFC before, and I look forward to watching him get that belt back.
Yeah, I really hope he does get the belt back, because I went there. I was there live at UFC 297 in Toronto, and I thought he won that fight. But everybody seemed to be split down the middle. So I'm hoping he gets that back. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about, is he exactly how he is on camera, how he is kind of behind closed doors, behind the scenes? Like, he seems like the type of person who he's exactly the same no matter what situation he's in.
Strickland is the same guy in person as he is on camera. He's been saying, the thing about you, for my entire career. It's just what he says. He's the same guy.
That's amazing. The last thing I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit about, just before we kind of wrap up. So one thing I really like about watching your videos, there are some internet trolls who kind of say, oh, you're terrible, you're this, you're that. They say whatever they want to say. But almost every single time you call them and say, hey, you're welcome to come down and put on some gloves and see how you do. Has anyone ever actually taken you up on that offer?
No, a bunch of cowards. Everyone on the internet's a coward. And I've always been very nice to all of them. Like, I understand 20 years from now, they will still know who I am, and I will still have no idea who they are. So whatever they say, if you're going to be mean, I really don't care. And I love sparring. I like sparring more than Sean Strickland does. You come down and I'll show you how bad I am. And we'll have a good time. I promise not to hurt any of you. And we'll just enjoy the 3 or 4 minutes we have together.
I do like to think, like I said, I started to do some martial arts in my late 20s, and all I've kind of learned in that experience is how little I know. So I went to a Muay Thai class back during like the pandemic or whatever, and I got paired up with the coach here in Canada. And for about 3.5 minutes, he hit me, I want to say maybe 200 times. And I'm like, and he was going very light. He was just touching me, but I'm like, if he put any power behind this, I would be toast. And the best I got was maybe like a glancing blow off of his shoulder. So I just know, like, anybody who's at that professional level, none of us citizens are doing anything to them.
Yeah, it's a skill. I mean, where some people have, the skill of building houses or selling products or doing whatever. We have a skill of punching people in the face. It's really a useless skill to have unless you're a fighter, but you never know that one time you wish you had it.
Yeah, I definitely see that. So the last thing I just wanted to ask you a little bit about was legacy. I always ask fighters about this type of thing. How do you want your fighting career to be seen? How do you want your fighting career to be? What sort of message do you want to pass on, maybe to younger fighters, people who are maybe trying to come up as a fighter? Is there anything that you would advise them, looking back on your career?
Yeah, the one thing I advise everyone that says they want to be a fighter is, listen, it's a great want, but you should really play baseball or football or golf or any other sport, because this sport does not pay. The chances of you being successful in it, it's not even a matter of you being a good fighter. It's a matter of being successful when the cameras are on. It's next to impossible. And it's a great sport. I love the sport, but I try and encourage all my young amateurs that if you're really good at arithmetic, become an accountant, because fighting is a terrible way to plan the rest of your life. But as far as legacy goes, I just want to be known as a guy who loves the sport. I love what I do. I will always give everything to everything I do, and I've spent my entire career trying to help people that want to do my sport. Yeah,
I really like that attitude, and just one of the things that I admire about you, from everything I've seen from your posts and whatever, is just how much positivity you bring to the sport. And just, it seems like you probably bring that to life in general, right? Like, there's so much negativity out there, and just people who are ready to dump on everybody else. But the positivity you bring, to the internet, to the combat sports world, I think is something that's super admirable.
Yeah, I've been blessed with what I do. Didn't mean to do it, but I've been blessed since I got here.
And then just the last thing I wanted to kind of ask you about, when it comes to karate combat, what's next for you in that department? When are you going to be blessing us with your presence again in the pit?
We don't know anything exactly yet, but I know in July they're coming to Nashville. That's my backyard. That's when I want to fight. So I'm going to be talking to them here soon and telling them what I'm hoping to see.
Well, that's pretty much it for me. I want to keep it short. I know your time is valuable, and I appreciate you doing this with me, for me, on my YouTube channel. And now you can brag to people that you were on the Ultimate Punching channel when it was small, because it's going to get big, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm bragging about it to everyone
But yeah,
else.
I wanted to just thank you, and I appreciate your time, and I look forward to talking to you again later.
We'll make
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, SmileNSam. This has been SmileNSam Alvey on the Ultimate Punching channel, and we will see you guys next time. Take care.
See you later, sir.